Hello again, this is Ryan Baxter, and I'm going to take you through part 2 of creating your first Lotus Notes plugin. Today what we'll be doing is creating your first plugin project, exploring some of the different aspects of that project, and adding some extension points so that you can add a right-click context menu to the right-click menus in Lotus Notes. So let's get started. As you can see, I already have Notes up and running, and we're ready to create our first plugin. The first thing you want to do is make sure you're in the plugin perspective. You can tell what perspective you're in by taking a look at the perspective menu switcher over here. You can see I'm in the Java perspective, so I need to switch to the plugin perspective. So if you go to Window, Open Perspective, and go to Other, and select Plugin Development, it will now open in the plugin development perspective. Next, what we want to do is create our project. So first go to File, New, and Project. And when we installed the Explorer Toolkit, it added some projects to our project's creation wizard. And the one you want to pick is the Client Services project. So if you click Next, you need to give it a name. So usually names start with a domain name, so we'll say com.acme and call it .demo.helloworld. Everything else is okay, so you can click Next. And this is some just basic setup for your plugin. And everything on here is pretty much okay to begin with, so you can just click Finish at this point. Once you click Finish, Eclipse has created a plugin project for you. You can see it here in the Package Explorer. And if you look at the project right now, there's not really much to it. There's something called a manifest.mf file, and we'll talk more about that, and a build.properties file, and we'll talk a little bit about that. The first thing Eclipse does, though, when you create a new project is it opens this editor here. And what it's showing you here is a pretty version of the manifest.mf file. You can see it has some of the basic information that we entered in the project creation wizard, like the plugin ID, the version, the name, the provider. And there's all these other tabs down here which all have different uses, and we'll talk a little bit more about what they do. But the first thing we'll visit is the manifest.mf file. You can see this is just a regular text file. There's not really much to it, but everything that's defined in here you can pretty much find over here in the overview page. So Eclipse is just creating this pretty editor on top of that text file. So let's take a look at some of the different tabs down here. The Dependencies tab, this is where you add dependencies for your plugin. So if your plugin needs to leverage other plugins, you would add them here. And you can do that by adding the whole plugin by clicking in this Required Plugin section, or you can actually import only specific specific packages from plugins here. Right now we don't really need to do anything for this, so we'll leave that alone. In the Runtime section, this is where you export packages from your plugin, so packages and classes that you want to share with other plugins, you can export from here, and you can determine which plugins are actually able to use those packages here. The Extensions tab is probably one of the most important tabs in this editor. This is where you add all your extension points. Whenever you extend the platform, so whether you're extending Eclipse or Expediter or Notes, you do it through an extension point, and you can learn more about extension points by Googling that. But this is where you add your extension points. The Extension Points tab is actually where you define extension points for your plugins. So if your plugin defines new extension points for other plugins, you would add them here. The Build tab actually controls how your plugin is built and manipulates this build.properties file here. Again, another pretty editor on top of a text file. We already took a look at the manifest.mf file, and here's just the quick look at the build.properties file. You usually never really have to touch much of this stuff. So, like I said, the first thing we want to do here is add a right-click menu to Notes. And to do that, we need to add an extension point. So if we go to the Extensions tab, and then click on the Add button, it will bring up an editor or another wizard here to select the extension point you want to add. So I just happen to know that the extension point we need is org.eclipse.ui.menus. And you can see as I type here, it filters out the extension points that match. So I click org.eclipse.ui.menus and click Finish. Two things happened when I did that. First, my extension point was added, but you can also notice that there's this plugin.xml file over here that wasn't there before. The plugin.xml file contains all your extension point definitions, and it's obviously an XML file by the extension on the file name. But as you can see, here's what it looks like. Again, Eclipse is just putting a pretty editor over that file, so it makes it easier to do things. Now that I've added my extension point, I need to add a new menu contribution to this extension point. I've added my menu contribution, and you can see that for this menu contribution I need to specify a location URI. The location URI defines where exactly your menu is going to go. In our case, we want to tell it to add a pop-up menu or a context menu to Notes. So we need to enter that location URI. I just happen to have the location URI predefined down here, so I'll just copy and paste it from my text file here into Eclipse. So if you take a look at this menu URI, location URI, you'll see we're telling it Eclipse to add a pop-up menu, or otherwise known as a context menu. And we want to put this context menu after any other pop-up menu in the UI. So that's what org eclipse UI.popup.any means. Then there's a parameter here in this URI, and it says after additions. So additions is a placeholder in any menu for additional menu options. So we're telling Eclipse that we want to put our context menu after the additions placeholder. Now that we have our menu contribution, we want to actually add a command to this menu contribution. And we add a command via another extension point. So the extension point is org eclipse.ui.commands. And you can see here's the extension point I'm looking for. And if I click Finish, my extension point is now added. And if I right click and go to New, I want to create a new command. So I select Command. You can see here the extension point details that I need to fill out are ID and name. We want to give each of our command extension points a unique name. So we'll just call it our hello world command for now. We want to give it a name also. So we'll call it our hello world command. After we've defined a command, we need to also define a handler for that command. That's yet another extension point, so I'll click Add again and look for org eclipse.ui.handlers. And I'll select my handler's extension point. Now that my handler's extension point is created, I need to define my handler. You can see here it's asking for a command ID. Now I just added my command up here with the ID com acme demo hello world command. So I need to give it that same ID. So if I click the browse button and look for com.acme, you'll see here's my command ID. I double click and it gets filled in. Now, if I go back to my menu contribution, I need to tell my menu contribution what exact command it needs to execute. So if I click New and select Command, I can see I've now added a command to my menu contribution. Again, it's asking for my command ID, so I'll go and select my command ID. That's the only thing I need to fill out, so I'll click Save here and go back down to my handler. Now notice my handler is asking me for a class. So it wants to know what class contains the logic for my handler. So I can just click this class link here and it brings up the new Java class dialog to create my class. So I'll call it my Hello World handler. And I want to put it in a package. The Hello World package is fine for now. And also saying that this is the interface I need to implement. Well, I happen to know that there's actually an abstract class already defined that implements this interface that I can use. So I can remove this and go to Browse, type in abstract handler. And you can see here there's two of them. One's deprecated. I want to use the one that's not deprecated. I click OK and click Finish. And now notice that my Hello World class has been created. And here is where I enter my Java code. So I happen to have some code already defined here that I can just copy and paste in. That should work. And paste that in there. And organize my imports so I get rid of my compiler errors. And click Save. So now I have everything defined. And you just need to make sure I save my handler class, my handler extension point, and I'll click Save there again. And we can launch Notes and see if it worked. And we had defined, in our previous video, I showed you how to configure the Expert Toolkit to launch Notes, and that's exactly what we're doing right now. You can see Notes is launched, so I'll enter my password. So here's the Lotus Notes. We're up and running. Now if I right click, I need to go to somewhere I can right click here. Let's go to the Home tab and then right click. You can see here's my Hello World command added to my context menu. And I click on the command and you can see it brings up my message dialog with the text Hello World. And this is exactly the logic that I pasted into our Java class. So if we go back and look at the Java class, we'll see here I'm defining a new message box. I'm telling it what message to say, and it's just saying Hello World, and I'm telling it to open. That's exactly what's happening here. And that's as easy as it is. Please see the wiki article and the blog entry for more information on how to define menus and context menus and where you can get some additional resources.